Hey everyone, I first want to start out and let you know that I was able to get everyone access to the 923 working folder. This has what's going to be the three different phases that we're going to have. So we have phase one already in there, has some of the old information we sent off. It has some of the new logo and the new feel of things. I know that's one of the things that Tanya had requested. It has the other accounting software passwords. Currently, it only has Wave. That's the only one we need for now, but that's where I'll put in the other ones. We have the Figma pages outline, which is each different phase with its list of pages that it needs for that phase that we expect to be completed. And then Figma links, that is the actual Figma wireframing files. One which is the overall file, and then one that's just the initial file for phase one. So that's what we have from a working folder, and those are the items that I expect us to use. Not so much the old file, but pretty much everything else. With that said, I'm going to go ahead and start a PowerPoint here. That's going to kind of lead us through some of the items that I wanted to talk to you guys about today. So NetSuite, your AI accountant. There are some new individuals on the call. So NetSuite is an AI accounting software with AI capabilities and a unique user interface. We're going to break this development into three different phases, or we'd prefer to, and we'll get your guys' feedback and what you think about that. Phase one is going to be just some functionality initially for trust clients for NetSuite. We believe that we can, throw some functionality that's going to help our current clients out initially. The second part is the trust accounting. So this is full-blown accounting at that point. And then phase three is general accounting, which also includes the user interface with the Scotty version of things, which we'll talk about in a moment. Like I said, there is an Excel sheet that has these three different phases on them. Let me go ahead and pull that up right quick. And so this is where that can be, this is where that is. The Figma pages outline has phase one, phase two, phase three, and all the darkened ones are ones that we've already completed from the previous phases. So, so that's where we're at, or that's where that comes in. So in phase one, what we want to do is we want to create, or we want the software to create a structured diagram using the AI. And that could be one or multiple different corporations or trusts, etc., which we'll get to in a moment. We then have, we want to be able to connect to the financial institutions. And that means Plaid, having Plaid link in place, the Plaid pages, etc., being able to download the transactions from bank accounts into Plaid or into the software using Plaid. We then want to be able to auto-create budgets for each entity and allow for budget review. And like I said, I'm going to explain how we're going to do all this in just a moment. And then eventually, so this is the setup portion of things, and eventually we wanted to monitor the personal transactions for potential trust expenses, as well as monitor trust transactions for additional required info, etc. So what that means is this. For phase one to be completed, we need to be able to add trusts or businesses in the software. We need to be able to input connections between the companies. We need to be able to create a structured diagram using AI. We need to connect to financial institutions and possibly import transactions using Excel. We need to auto-create budgets for each entity and do the review, and then future transactions that come in, we need to be able to monitor different transactions. So what I want to show you now is the initial Figma file that we have that shows how we're going to get all this other information. So this is the initial setup phase one Figma file. And this is a blown up version of it. We just basically have zoomed in. So we need to be able to add a company, right? So that's number one, add a trust and businesses. So this is the page that where we do that. So the business name, the entity type, the taxation, the primary owner email, and the primary owner name. These are the entities, or excuse me, the entities, the LLCs and corporations, etc., that we've already put in. So we input the information, we add it. That's added to this section, so you can see now company D is there. We can take it away, we can add it. And so that's the first part. We need to be able to add different entities, trusts, and business. So that's that part. Next, we need to be able to input connections between the two companies. So we click next, and now we're adding the related company connections. So now that you've entered all of your different businesses and trusts, please detail how the different businesses are connected. This means that if there's ownership, a contract, a loan, etc., between your entities, we need to input them. So let's assume that we put in a business trust and there was a connection, a contract between the business trust and company A LLC. Now there's ownership, asset purchase, lent funds, borrowed funds, and a contract. That's really it. That's the type of interaction that these companies can have. So our business trust has a contract with our other company, Company A. The amount's $2,500. And our description, we can write whatever we want. We put in management contracts. So we're going to add that. So now we have information about all of the different entities that are in the company. And we have an idea of exactly how they all interact together. Now, based on that information, we should be able to create the prompt to create a custom entity diagram. Now, what I did is I actually put in a link to the video I'm about to show you to kind of talk about how we can do that. Now, I know you guys know how we can do this, but this is the easiest way for me to explain how we can utilize the information of knowing all the different entities and how they connect to have the AI create a structured diagram between the two. So let's watch this right quick.
But then turn that prompt. Hey everybody, how's it going? What I'll do today is show you how to generate a ChatGPT prompt, but then turn that prompt into a diagram. And this is going to be a diagram that is typically something that is very labor intensive. It takes upwards of a few hours to create, and what we're going to do is put it into a program that will take that diagram, that text output, and turn it into a diagram quite easily. Let's go ahead and get started. I haven't rehearsed this, so bear with me. I'm just going to say here, generate a text representation of a cloud architecture diagram about how Netflix works. So for me, this is, so it's talking about clients, content library, edge locations. Yeah, this is pretty good. It's not technical enough for me though. So I'm gonna write a modification in here. I'm just going to say, make it more technical, describing the cloud services that need to be used, and understanding what's involved. I want to copy this. 8 free diagrams that I can make with their AI tool. Not necessarily only with their AI tool, but you can draw diagrams, start with a template. The purpose of this video is to show you how to take an output from ChatGPT and turn it into a diagram, right? So I'm going to click on AI diagram here. And I'm going to go back to ChatGPT. Again, I'm going to copy this, put it in here. And under diagram type, you can have it just figure out what kind of diagram you're referring to. but I want to create a cloud architecture because I wanted to not mistake it for anything else. And that's the purpose of all the text that was generated with ChatGPT. So we're going to click on generate. Let's see what it comes up with. It's getting all the icons ready. Clients, content library, edge locations, load balancers. These look like Google Cloud icons. This is great. Cloud Bigtable. So it's drawing everything out. It's getting ready to draw all the connections. Typically, the cloud architecture diagram, there they are. The cloud, the connections will show you what is required from a workflow perspective.
So you guys get the idea. We want to be able to take the information that we've learned about from all of the different companies and be able to take the information that we know, how they're related, and create a diagram basically. So we want to do that. So the next part is connect to financial institutions and use import transactions. So we do all of the different connections. It's going to cycle through each different company. So we'll go through company 1, company 2, company 3, etc. Make sure that it's added all the connections. Once we are done with that, we go to next. And that brings us to this page. This is actually the Plaid link interface that's inputted into this page. And so it basically says, hey, we want to connect to financial institutions. Go ahead and type in the institution you want. Click on it, and then you're going to put in your password, you're going to connect, and then it's going to download all the different types of accounts that you have access to. So let's assume that we went through that entire process, and now we have this new account that's available. It's not linked to any company or individual or trust or anything, so we're going to need to link it. So now it's linked to a company or trust or what have you. Once we do that, the transactions start to download. And so we need to have the capability to have those transactions received into the system. Normally that's done with Plaid pages, Plaid database pages, and not from Plaid, but created in our system, etc. So once that downloads, we can auto-create budgets for review from each entity, and basically we're going to do that utilizing the information from the last 90 days from each one of the companies, trusts, or individuals, synthesize what that looks like on an average basis, and also utilize the connections that we have to either identify or find those connections, those different transactions, if they're currently taking place, and if not, put them in as just a line item in the budget that needs to go forward. So that's what we need to do in phase 1. Once again, add trusts, businesses, input connections between companies, create a structure diagram, connect to the different institutions for all the different companies. Once all the information is downloaded, we create budgets for them, and then we can monitor everything. Now, I'm going to go over it. I technically just went over it. So basically, the phase 1 goals and needs. So our needs, I need to understand your process. Like, what do you do first? Universally, is it universal fields? Is it tables? Once you go past the mapping part, what do you do first? So that would just be helpful for me. And then what do you need from me? I am going to be able to provide throughout the process when it's needed different types of diagrams like these. And this isn't specific to anything right now, but this is a diagram where it would show, hey, we're having Plaid transactions come in. Those transactions are then reviewed and go into the budget area, etc. So I'll be able to help provide those types of diagrams to make things easier. Now what I want to do is I want to talk about those 3 things just on their own, so we can really see not how easy it's going to be, but how defined this process for this phase will be. So we want to create a diagram via using AI. Once again, an entity is a trust, a company, a trust, or a person. So how do we get the needed information? We have the list of entities. We have a list of how each entity interacts with each other, and then we can create a script that does a prompt into a diagramming software or diagramming script. So that's the first one. Okay, so the next one is ID potential trust items. So what does that mean? So Nexus Trust can pay for specific items, and we want to identify those items in the personal transactions of trustees. So we want to say, okay, I have 100 different transactions that I pay for personally, and out of those 100, 15 of them can be paid for by the trust. And so we're going to identify those 15. We're going to make sure that those 15 are okay to be paid by the trust, by a professional or the individual using the software. And then we'll move those over to the budget for the trust and reduce them out from the personal budget. So Plaid helps us to download the transactions into our software. Plaid also includes categorizations with each transaction. Now, there's categorizations for the personal accounts, and there's different categorizations for business accounts. And we're only talking about personal accounts. So this is the actual Plaid categorization. It goes through and does basically a primary type and then a custom detail type. So every single transaction that comes through will have one of these categorizations. What we can do is our CPAs can go through this and say, okay, this specific item could be paid for by the trust if it's in a property that is owned by the trust or that the beneficiary is using. And so there's going to be ones that can't be paid for by the trust, period, like entertainment. But there are items that can be paid for by the trust. So our CPAs are going to go through and identify which ones might be able to be paid for by the trust. And so in our budget, when it comes through on our software in the initial phase one, we're going to be able to match those